Attention divers, boards are now closed. Please meet near the trampoline staging area.
Why can't you see that I can't just see that I'm dancing next to you? I'll be trying to get to you. If you only could see me too. Just when I need you. Yeah. I'm moving up to you. The music is fading. I want you tonight. Let's make it happen. I wanna love you tonight. Your body next to mine, and I won't waste your time. I need to make it happen, baby, with you. Together in the night, you'll see. You know that I want you, know that I need you now. Your body next to mine, and I won't waste your time. I need to make it happen, baby, with you. Oh baby, why can't you see that I'm dancing
Good afternoon and welcome to day 2 of the 2022 USA Diving Winter Nationals. I am your announcer, Aaron Rooney, and I, alongside Milan Park and USA Diving, welcome you to the Milan Park Aquatic Center for today's 3-meter men's synchro finals. Please give a big round of applause for our men's 3-meter synchro finalists. Diving first, Ethan Radio and Jackson Salisbury. Diving second, Dylan Reed and Sam Duncan. Diving third, Grant Cates and Noah Turner. Diving fourth, Evan Stingley and Braylon Goodnow. Diving fifth, Anastasios Callanan and George Callanan. Diving sixth, Chase Stevens and Adam Snedden. Diving seventh, David Ekdahl and Max Berman. Diving 8th, Nick Harris and Max Fowler. Diving 9th, Noah Dupere and Jack Ryan. Diving 10th, Andrew Capobianco and Quinn Henninger. And your final divers this evening are Greg Duncan and Tyler Downs. Let's hear it for all the competitors. I would like to introduce you to Belle Nichols. Belle is a sophomore biomedical laboratory diagnostics major at West Virginia University. A Morgantown native, is currently serving as Miss Mountain State, where she promotes blood donation across the state. She will now sing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. and good luck to all the competitors.
With new opportunities around each mountain bend. Here, we don't just pride ourselves on being the best, we commit to it, designing world-class facilities with premier resources, backed by our communities who are determined to aid in our success.
Judge 8,
together,
please
we'll
enter
reach new
your
heights.
judge number.
We welcome you to the place where you belong. Our country roads lead to new beginnings.
Dive Live, now available at the Apple and the Google Store. Allows divers to enter their dive sheets, everything they need on the phone, including add video to their dive sheets. Great for recruiting. For coaches, there is no easier way to run a diving contest. Dive Live, now available at the Apple and the Google Store. Allows divers to enter their dive sheets, everything they need on the phone, including add video to their dive sheets. Great for recruiting. For coaches, there is no easier way to run a diving contest. Dive Live, now available at the Apple and the Google Store. Allows divers to enter their...
We are ready to begin round 1 of men's 3-meter synchro. Ethan and Jackson, 301B.
Nothing yet.
Oh, I got something.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you can't? Oh, there we go. Awesome.
Ah.
Sorry about that, everybody. So we're getting started here with men's 3-meter synchronized diving. I'm joined tonight by current Indiana collegiate diver Max Weinrich, and I believe Max was also an Olympic trial qualifier at the last Olympics trials, correct?
That is correct, yes. Thank you very much for having me tonight. It's an honor.
Scores
That's awesome.
6.
So our first
5,
athletes were Ethan
5,
Radio and Jackson Salisbury.
5,
They both
7,
are collegiate athletes
6
from
and
the
a
University of
half,
Pittsburgh.
5 and a half,
And starting
5 and
off
a
pretty
half,
strong there for
5,
them, 33 points,
7,
a little less than they did
5
in the
and a half.
prelims there. Moving forward, we're going to have Dylan Reed and Sam
Dylan
Duncan,
and
which are pretty
Sam.
unique because they just threw this team together
401B.
this morning, correct,
Yeah.
Max?
Yeah, I was talking to these guys this morning, and they were really just focused on having fun. And
They can hear us out there. Nice dive.
very nice.
They can hear us out
Execution scores 7.5, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. Synchronization scores 7.5, 7.5, 7, 6.5.
Dylan and Sam
7.
starting out really strong there.
Grant
Yeah, that was a
and
great dive.
Noah, 401B.
You go ahead and give them feedback.
Very nice dive.
Execution scores 7, 6, 7.5, 6.5, 7.5, 7. Synchronization scores 8, 8, 7.5, 8, 8. Evan and Braylon, 401B.
Are you sure? I thought they could hear us down there. Oh, all right. Okay. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. Sorry about that, everybody. We thought they could hear us on the pool deck, and we didn't want to distract any of the athletes. So now we have Evan Stingley and Braylon Goodnow from Ripfest, starting with an inward dive there.
Yeah.
So what
Nice
do you
to
think?
see some junior athletes in this event.
Absolutely. A little bit different than last night, actually. We were talking about that before we came
Execution
on air.
scores
There's
6.5,
only 4 junior
5.5,
teams. There's actually, or excuse me,
5.5,
3 junior teams.
6.5.
And there's a pair
8,
that has actually
7.
kind of combined college
Synchronization
and
scores
junior
6.5,
diving.
6.5.
But Max, why don't you tell our viewers, kind of walk us through that scoreboard that they're able to see and what the dive numbers are and the degree of
and
difficulty.
George,
Yeah,
201B.
so each dive has a specific code for it, a specific dive number. And for the first 2 rounds in the synchronized event, all of the degree of difficulty is 2.0. So it's kind of an even playing field for the first 2 rounds. Really judged highly on execution is where you're going to get most of your points. And in the last 4 rounds is where you can really shake up the game, if you will.
That's where the fun dives happen that everybody really likes to see. Anastasios and George, which is pretty awesome.
Execution
They're twin
scores
brothers.
6.5,
And they start with an
6.5,
awesome
7,
dive there.
7,
in the prelims, they only got 36 points on that, so really up in their score there.
Synchronization
Great to
scores
see them do a little bit better in
7.5,
finals.
7.5,
I think you'll
7.5,
see that from a lot of
7.5,
athletes where
7.
the final rolls around and you're a little more comfortable
Jay
on the
and
boards
Adam,
and just a little bit more amped up,
401B.
and you'll definitely see some higher scores in the final.
Awesome, awesome. Next up is Chase Stevens and Adam Snedden, both from the University of Louisville, I believe. So again, we're going to see a lot more college athletes, college competitors in this event. Max, kind of the next step here is why don't you walk our listeners and viewers through they'll see execution 1, execution 2, and then synchronization. Tell us what those scores are, and then how they calculate that final total here, which we're about to see from these 2.
Yeah, so you'll see that was a really nice dive, and you'll probably see a lot of 7s for the execution, which is a great way to start the competition.
Execution scores
and
6.5,
the execution
5.5,
is just about
6,
how clean you go in the
7.5,
water, how steady your
7.5,
form is, how nice you look in
7.5.
the air.
Synchronization
and the
scores
synchronization is
7,
your timing.
7,
If you and your partner
6.5,
are landing
6.5,
right next to each
6.5.
other, or if there's a little bit of discrepancy in
David
distance
and
from
Max,
the board.
401B.
That's where the scores come from. And your total will come from multiplying your scores by the degree of difficulty, which in the first 2 rounds is 2.0.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Max. Next up, we have David and Max from TCU. And David is actually an international athlete, which I think is awesome that we do have some international athletes at this meet. It kind of has a feel of a really big meet, not just here in the U.S., but maybe even having some international athletes. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd love to see it, and I think that's one thing that's what makes NCAA diving
Execution
so
scores
spectacular.
7,
is you get
7.5,
amazing
7.5,
divers from all over the world, not just in the U.S.
6.5,
and it really ups the game.
6.5.
Yeah, so this
Synchronization
next team is actually one of our younger teams,
7.5,
but also it's that mixed
7.5,
team that we mentioned
6.5,
with Nick Harris and Max Fowler.
7.
Nick Harris is diving for Texas,
Nick
and then
and
Max Fowler is from your former club,
201B.
correct? NBC? Well, he started with Alexandria, right? And now it's kind of one big club.
Yes, the clubs have merged together in a way, but yeah, these guys are both from the East Coast, so I grew up diving with them, and they're both really cool, nice guys, and great divers.
That's awesome. And a pretty good dive there. Looks like Max maybe was just a little bit cleaner than Nick there, but still an awesome dive. I think we'll see some good scores here from this.
Execution
one thing about
scores,
synchro
8,
diving is
7,
the synchronization scores
6.5,
almost can carry the dive more
7.
than the execution.
Synchronization
You still have to
scores,
execute well,
7.5,
but if your synchro
7.5,
and your timing is good,
8,
then you'll definitely score big
7.5.
points.
Yeah, and that was almost a 5.4 increase
Noah
there
and
in
Jack,
points from the prelims. That's awesome.
401B.
Now you're all going to see how this next team, Noah and Jack, they have 333.99 next to their name as well in the red letter and the red numbers there. That's their score from prelim. So those scores carry over, and they're going to aggregate them together to get our champion and our medalists. Excuse me.
Yep. Got to be consistent through 12 dives.
Which is hard to do.
Oh, totally.
And then for Olympic trials, that's 3 lists they do, correct?
Yeah. So 18 dives. You can't miss one.
That's crazy. Beautiful dive there. I was able to see Noah on the far board there was just really putting his dive down. And I believe the far board is the execution too, and the close board to us, which would also
Execution
be the closest board
scores,
in your
7.5,
view, is dive
7.5,
1.
That's
6,
what I thought. Sometimes
7.5,
it's hard to tell though
7,
because they're both
6.5.
good dives. They got similar
Synchronization
scores.
Yeah, absolutely.
scores, 7,
That's awesome.
7.
So next up, we actually have 2 of your
7,
teammates, Andrew
7.
and Quinn.
Yeah, come on, boys.
Andrew
so
and
we're going to get
Quinn,
into this a little bit later as we get into the
201B.
optionals. Just talking about kind of what was going on with these 2 in between prelims and finals, but you're going to see some giant dives, very much an Olympic caliber list that you're going to see from a lot of these teams, but they're throwing some pretty big DD dives here once we get into the optionals.
Yes, they are. All right, solid
Again,
start.
Yes, very good start. Now in prelims, they were able to put this down for 45.6 points. So we're going to see if they go, it might be just around that, you think?
Yeah, I would imagine it's going to be similar to the pre.
Execution scores, 7,
just a hair
6.5,
under that, actually.
7.5,
Might have been because Andrew went a little bit long
7.5,
there or over-rotated past vertical on the
Synchronization
vertical line.
scores,
Yeah, I think
6.5,
Quinn did too.
7.5,
Yeah, so-
7.
But that's also why we're seeing the
6.5,
synchronized
7.
scores being pretty high there and helping, kind of like you had mentioned.
Greg
and now
and
it's our leaders
Tyler,
after one set of
201B.
dives. Greg Duncan and Tyler Downs. And we're going to see them do the exact same dive here. They went for 48.6 points in the prelims. So let's see if they can do that either the same and or better.
Yeah, and in these first 2 rounds, the benchmark is almost set at 50, I would say. If you're looking for those, medal positions at an international competition, you want to be scoring 50 points on these first 2 rounds.
Awesome. Oh,
Beautiful.
yeah, definitely the best one I think we've seen so far, in my opinion. That was textbook. That was awesome, and it's pretty awesome for our viewers. There's 2 Olympics.
Execution scores, 8.5,
You see
9,
49.2.
7.5,
That's incredible. You can see a 9 there, which
8.
I believe that was for
Synchronization
Tyler.
scores,
Still 8.
8.
Awesome
8.5,
job.
8.5, 8, 8.5.
All right, so hey Max, while we're here, kind of during this break, why don't you tell our viewers, how do you get paired up with a synchro partner? How does that process begin? What does it look like?
Yeah, so the way that I've always done it, or I started doing synchro pretty young, and I kind of just looked for someone who dove similarly to me and someone who did a lot of the same dives as me.
Right.
And, eventually you just have to try it and see if it works out. And synchro is just so fun that if you find a partner that you really get along with well, then you guys can just have a great time and, really kind of relax a bit when you're competing.
That's awesome. Now, do you think that is something that helps you in training when you're kind of doing synchro? Does that help you just, like you said, relax a little bit? And maybe do you notice your performance is a little bit better on individual dives, or is it a little more stressful for you personally?
I think it can be a little bit of both because you don't want to let your partner down. You want to make sure you're performing your best. So you definitely are held accountable in that sense. But at the end of the day, I think we all do this sport because we love it. So
Yeah, that's
synchro's fun.
We
That's
are ready
awesome.
to
You guys can
begin
see Max
round
just
2.
loves talking about diving like we do here. So this is just an awesome event. We're going to get started here with round 2. Again, Ethan and Jackson from the University of Pittsburgh. You'll see on the board there's a U
53-31D.
under to the bottom left of Ethan's name. That just means they're diving unattached. They're not affiliated with a club team for this meet. But we're going to see a reverse 1.5 somersaults with a half twist here. And maybe why don't you give our viewers a crash course of what the numbers actually mean? Maybe give them a crash course and try to teach them while we're watching these dives here.
Sure, yeah. So that's a nice dive. And what Heath was talking about with the numbers, for a twisting dive, the numbers are a little bit complex. Every twisting dive on a springboard will start with a 5.
Execution
and
scores.
the next number
6,
is the direction
6,
that they're flipping in.
6,
So in this case,
4.5,
it was a reverse, so
4.5,
it's a 3. If
5.
it was a front, it would be a 1.
Synchronization
If it was a
scores.
back, it would be a
6.5,
2.
6.
The next number,
5,
the second 3,
6
is
and
the
a half,
number of
5.5.
half rotations you're doing. So since it's a
Dylan
1.5,
and
it's
Sam,
3 half
301B.
rotations. And the last number is how many half twists. So in that case, it was 1 half twist.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
All right, Dylan and Sam here.
Yeah, this is a brand new pair. They threw this together this morning, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they literally had about 1 hour of practice, and you can kind of see that a little bit in that forward takeoff that they're doing, that approach leading up to the end of the board. Dylan on the close board had an awesome dive. They were just a little bit out of sync, it looked like, so I was see how
Execution
that
scores.
reflects in their
6.5, 7.5, 7.5.
Quite a discrepancy on
7,
execution too as well.
3,
Yeah.
6.5.
I'm not 100% sure what they saw
Synchronization
there on,
scores.
I believe Sam's
7,
dive for that 3, but
5.5.
I thought the dives
5
were
and
pretty
a
good.
half,
And
5.5.
And you can
5.
see the synchronization there, 5.5. That's just time, I think, for our viewers. Some
Grant
of these teams,
and
like,
Noah.
For example, great example was your
301B.
teammates and Greg and Tyler. You know, they train together every day. They practice. They're able to throw this into training. How often do, from your perspective, Quinn and Andrew practice their synchronization?
They're normally paired up for, I would say at least 2 practices a week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if not more.
Right.
So they spend a lot of time. They honestly make synchro training
Execution
almost a priority
scores.
because,
6,
I mean,
5.5,
Andrews won a
6.5.
Olympic silver medal in this
Yeah.
event.
6.5,
Pretty
6,
important.
Yeah.
6.
Kind of a big deal.
Synchronization scores.
And I must
6,
say, it's really
6
amazing
and a
getting
half,
to train with those
6
guys.
and a half,
Like,
6
people
and a
to look
half,
up to, people
6
to
and a
chase.
half.
For our viewers, yesterday I made a comment
Evan
to
and
the
Braylon,
Indiana men. And I said,
301B.
man, practice must be so fun. It's like a murderer's row, meaning all the men are just all excellent divers. And I've realized I'm kind of starting to date myself, which is odd because none of them understood the reference. And so I felt really old in that moment. All right, Evan and Braylon here. Good dive. That looked really, really nice. I think we'll see some good scores from that.
Yeah, and they look like they're very confident in their timing as well. I
Yeah.
think they train together.
Execution scores.
goes to show the more
6,
time you put into
6.5,
it.
6.5.
And then next
5,
up, Anastasios.
5.5.
And you said he goes by a different,
6.
like he likes to go by an abbreviated
Synchronization
name.
I think he goes by
scores.
Tasso, yeah.
5.5,
Awesome.
6,
George and Tasso, the
6.
twins.
That's awesome.
5.5,
And they both go
6.
to Princeton, which is pretty incredible. I mean, that's something too to keep in mind.
Anastasios
But where
and
this
George.
week falls for these college
301B.
athletes in particular, and high school athletes, they're missing class and they're making that class up beforehand or after. So it's a big shout out to those administrators that allow for this to happen and allow for them to take these tests and still be great student athletes. And you have to be a great student athlete to be at Princeton, Indiana. There's Harvard, Yale. That you guys don't sacrifice your grades for your athletics, which is incredible.
Yeah, it really is a balance.
Execution
And that was a great
scores.
dive from
6.5,
Yes, it was.
7,
42
6.5,
points. That's awesome.
6.5,
see
6.5,
that was
6.5.
Just for reference, they scored
Synchronization
26
scores.
points on that
7.5,
in the prelims.
7,
That's awesome
7.5,
to see.
Shook off a little bit of rust in
Seven.
between during the break.
Yeah. kind of similar story here with Che and Adam. They only went for
Che and
25
Adam.
points on this
301
prelim, so
B.
they're really, I would imagine they're going to score a little bit more than that because they're both incredible divers in their own right.
Yeah, I bet they will score higher too.
Much better than what they did in the prelim. That's awesome. It's great that we're seeing kind of performances like you said. Everyone's a little bit more relaxed, kind of get the nerves out. We're able to get a little bit of a break there in the middle.
Execution scores.
Very nice.
5,
35.
Time for a nap, I would say.
6,
Awesome.
5.5.
35.
5
So
and a
about
half.
10 points more.
5.
That's awesome. So we're going to kind of get into our top 5 teams here with David and Max. And I mentioned David's an international
6
diver.
and a
I believe he's
half.
from Sweden.
6.
Is that so?
I believe so. So fun fact
David
about
and Max.
David is I was informed, I don't know how true this
301B.
is, so don't quote me, but I was informed from his coach that last year he was able to win, I believe, 1 meter in the Big 12 championship, and he was one of 2 divers ever to not be from Texas and win a Big 12 championship in diving.
Wow.
Isn't that kind of crazy?
That is really crazy.
Little diving trivia there.
I mean, I don't think the viewers can see this,
Yeah.
but the record board here at this WD
Insane.
pool is filled 100% with Texas divers.
Yeah, Texas divers, Texas swimmers, but just awesome job there. A little bit off in the
Execution
synchronization, it
scores.
looked like.
5.
Yep,
5.
we can see that. The dives were okay.
5.
You know, for
5
our
and a
viewers,
half.
when you're
5 and a
you know,
half.
when you come into this event or when
Synchronization
you're diving,
scores.
you know, you
5
see
and a
those.
half.
Let's just focus
4
on
and a half.
execution. You see
4
5,
and a
5,
half.
5, 5 and a half.
5 and a half.
You know, can
5
you
and a
kind of
half.
break those down into categories for our viewers that maybe aren't
Nick
familiar?
and
Like,
Max.
wait, why was that a 5? Like,
301
what does
B.
the numbers and maybe where the categories fall into?
Yeah, I mean, the FINA diving has like a scale where I think 10 is excellent,
Right.
8.5 to 9.5 is very good,
Yep.
7 to 8.5 is good. Then it goes.
Great dive.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So that's gonna definitely be in the good category.
Yeah.
It's a good dive.
We might see some very good in the execution. That was incredible. And they went 36
Execution
on
scores.
this.
8.
So they stepped that
8,
up. So that's that
7 and
good
a half.
to very good category.
6
You
and a
guys can
half.
see that.
7.
That's
7 and a
incredible.
half.
Great job from this young
Synchronization
team
scores.
here.
8.
Yeah,
And then-
7.
Speaking
Continue.
of,
7.
speaking
Yes.
of Texas
7 and a
divers,
half.
Nick Harris, Texas
7.
athlete.
Yes. Texas, and then Noah,
Noah
here as
and
well.
Jack.
Yeah.
And Jack Ryan dives at
301B.
Stanford, correct?
Yeah, I think
That's
so.
awesome. So how, I guess a good question here for our viewers, they might be wondering, how on earth does a diver from Stanford get paired with a diver from Texas?
I think it's kind of like we talked about before a little bit. You kind of just look for people that do your same dives, people that dive similarly, and they dive similarly and they both dive great.
Yeah, I guess if you're really, really good on your own right, let's just throw 2 really good divers together and some really good
Execution
stuff's happening.
scores. 7 and a half.
Great
7
dive
and a
from
half.
those 2.
7 and a half.
42 points.
6 and a half.
A little bit of a
6,
step up from earlier
7.
as well. So
Synchronization
I think we're going to see some
scores.
fun optionals
8,
here in a couple
7.
dives.
Oh, I'm excited.
7.
So here are your teammates,
7 and a half.
Andrew and Quinn.
7.
Yes. Let's see it, boys.
Andrew and Quinn. 301B.
Same exact dive that Noah and Jack just did, as well as Nick and Max as well. Great synchro. Great dive.
Really nice dive.
That was awesome.
I think you see a lot of the reverse dives as voluntaries because if you don't do it as a voluntary, then you'll have to
Execution
do a reverse as an
scores.
optional.
Yeah.
7 and a half.
That's a great
8
thing.
and a
Maybe even
half.
touch
8
base
and a
on that. You
half.
know, you
7 and
had
a
mentioned
half.
that.
5 and a
Why
half.
would a
7.
group not want to do reverse as an
Synchronization
optional?
scores. 7 and a
Reverse,
half.
for
7
a
and
lot
a
of-
half.
For some people,
7
it's
and
their
a
money
half.
dive. I
8.
mean, it's something they can
Right.
count
7 and
on,
a
but
half.
For a lot of people, you know, spinning reverse, synchronized
Greg
in a
and Tyler.
competition can just be a lot of
301B.
variables, and it can be a tough one to hit.
All right, and then here are our leaders. I believe they are still our leaders at this point in time. Yeah, so they actually are still leading without doing the dive, which is pretty incredible.
Wow.
So we're going to see a exact same dive here. They went for 48.6. So let's see if they can up that a little bit here this evening. Great synchronization.
Yeah.
Very good dive. I personally, I liked Andrews and Quinn's a tad better, so let's see if the judges kind of reflect
Execution
that as
scores.
well. So they went a little.
9,
the judges liked it a
9,
lot more.
Yeah, they did.
8.5.
I think they really
7,
get rewarded for
8,
their beautiful
8.
lines.
Yeah.
And beautiful
Synchronization
toe point.
scores.
Absolutely.
8.5.
So before
8,
we kind of get rolling into
8.5,
optionals here,
8.5,
Max,
8.5.
why don't we walk our viewers through why is this meet so important for so many of these athletes? What makes this a big meet to want to come to?
Yeah, well, we're about, a year and a half out from the next Olympics.
Yeah.
So now is the time where you're really looking for a partner that you're going to go on that Olympic journey with and hopefully go to trials with and try to qualify with. So it's just really important to start getting competitions under your belt now so you have the experience going into the Olympic qualifications.
So is that something that's factored in as they decide the dives they're going to do, as they decide partners? I mean, you already mentioned that's a decision with the partners, but just the dives they're doing, like, are we going to see maybe dives here in a little bit that maybe aren't fully ready to go in terms of like crushing them and doing them for those 9s and
Totally.
10s? Yeah, so why would they do that?
Well, I think a prime example of that is going to be Andrew and Quinn from IU. They're going for a really big list today because they think that's the list that they're going to need to win a medal at the Olympic Games. You know, they're using the triple out, which is a front 2.5 with 3 twists. It's a huge dive, and it's brand new for both of them, but they're competing it just to get some experience with it in a competition.
That's awesome. So when you say it's a brand new dive for them, like how new? Like when did they start actually executing the dive together?
I think at this point they have maybe done 5 or 6 of them synchro. So it's for Andrew's been doing it for a couple years now. Quinn probably learned it 2 months ago. So it's brand new.
We are ready to begin.
That's
Round
incredible to know they're coming to this level of meet because this is a big meet
yeah.
with some, as you guys can see while you're watching this, some awesome,
Ethan and
awesome
Jackson.
divers. So we're going to roll back in here. Now the fun
52-35D.
dives. This is where we're going to see some big points scored. So prelims, this dive was a 43-point dive for Ethan and Jackson. So let's see if they can up that. They actually are going in a little bit of a different order than earlier. So, excuse me, that dive that they just did scored 47 points earlier. They did that last in the prelim. So, a little bit of a switch up here in order.
Execution scores.
And they went a little less than they did in the prelim. But
5.5,
that's okay. Still a strong
4.5,
score. Still kind of holding right where they were.
6.
So, that's great.
Synchronization scores.
Maybe they
5.5,
put that dive at a different
5,
spot for some
5,
more confidence to
5.5,
get an optional
5.5.
under their belt that they're confident with before they maybe go for some
Dylan
trickier
and
ones.
Sam.
That's an excellent point. That's something you'll see as you
107B.
put your list together, kind of going confident dives to start out to really just kind of build that momentum.
Totally. I always want to start with a dive that I can rely on and finish on a dive that I can rely on.
What's your go-to starting dive?
For springboard, I would say my go-to is 405B.
That was nice for
Very
the team
nice.
that got thrown together this morning. Now, for reference, that dive scored 26.97 points, so a little less than 30. They're going to be well over that, I would imagine.
6.
Yeah.
Yeah,
6.5.
Yeah, let's double it.
6.
That's awesome. Great
7,
for those two.
6.5.
We're going to see them, I
7.
think, kind of climb the
Synchronization
leaderboard here,
scores.
which is
7,
great to see. They're both
7,
awesome
7,
young men that we were able to speak to a little
6.5.
bit. Now, Greg, like we said,
6.5.
it says Pitt up there, but Greg Duncan actually goes to the
Grant
University of Kentucky,
and
I believe,
Noah.
correct?
Well, Greg
107
Duncan
Or excuse me,
went to
Sam.
Purdue.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, your guys' rival over there, right?
Yeah, Sam Duncan went to
Thank
Kentucky.
you.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
That must be fun having a brother to battle it out with in the diving.
Right, absolutely. Great dive from these junior divers. Grant and Noah with a front 3.5 tuck there. Now that was a 49-point dive for them in the prelims, so let's kind of see where that shakes out. Might be a
Execution
hair better. Let's
scores.
see. Yep.
6.
Just a hair better.
5.5.
I thought that looked
5.
awesome.
5.5.
So maybe explain
7.
to our viewers
5.5.
what is the difference. We keep saying
Synchronization
senior
scores.
divers, junior divers. What's the difference there?
6.5. 7.
So,
7.
In order to be considered a
6.5.
junior diver,
7.
you pretty much just have to be 18.
Evan and Braylon.
You are allowed to compete in the
107B.
USA Diving Junior circuit where there's age groups. But once you're a senior, it's anyone can compete as long as you're doing hard enough dives.
Right, that's what I was just about to ask. Is there a cutoff for athletes to compete at this meet, but it's just the degree of difficulty? So that is going to be a good example of something that got way off there. Why do you think they got so far out of synchronization there, Max?
Well, it looks like whoever was on the inside board closer to the platforms was falling off the board, and they actually had a great save
Execution
there. They managed to
scores
save
2.5,
the dive and,
3,
knock it zeros.
2,
Yeah, absolutely. Which
4,
does happen.
2.5,
We'll mention that
5.
earlier. There was a couple
Synchronization
failed dives.
scores,
You know,
3,
why would we
3,
see that? Maybe
1.5,
you know, what happens?
1.5,
and does that happen often?
3.5.
I mean, it does happen often. As unfortunate
Anastasios
as
and
it
George.
is, you know,
405
sometimes things don't
B.
go as you would like, especially in springboard diving. The hurdle and getting a good hurdle is so important.
So you know, I'm gathering. Do you prefer the springboard or the platform? What's your preference?
I think I prefer the platform almost because of that reason I just said. The hurdle is one of the most complex things in diving.
And it's the thing you have to learn, right? It's like the first thing you learn, and it's the last thing you'll master, I bet.
Exactly. That's what my coach, Drew Johansson, says.
Great dive there from these young men.
Really good.
Inward 2.5 pike.
Execution
Maybe explain the
scores
difference for us.
7,
We're going to see
7.5,
pike,
6.5,
tuck,
6.5,
straight, free.
7,
So explain those A, B,
6.
C, and D for our viewers.
Synchronization
Yeah, so
scores
they just did a
7,
dive, which was in the pike
7.5,
position, or
6,
D is the
7,
code for it.
7.5.
And that just means you have straight legs and you want to
Che and Adam,
grabbing your arms
51,
behind your
52
legs,
B.
and rotate in that position. This is
Awesome.
another dive in the pike position, but there's also talk, like Keith mentioned,
Yep.
where you're grabbing your shins straight, which is where you're just in a straight body line. And twisting dives are usually in the free position.
All right, so we got a front 2.5 with a full twist here.
Wow, really great timing on that dive.
Great dive. Great dive from these two. Now, you know, as we kind of jump back and forth. between
Execution
USA diving
scores
and then a little bit of the
6.5,
collegiate talk,
6,
do you have
6.5,
synchronization diving
6.5,
as
6,
a collegiate event?
6.5.
They don't
Synchronization
right now,
scores
although
7,
I heard
7.5,
possibly
7,
putting a
7,
team event into Big
7.
Tens,
That'd be exciting.
which there might be some synchro involved
David
there.
and
I
Matt.
don't think that will be super fair with that
205
Indiana and Purdue and Ohio State crews. I feel like that might be a pretty wild event to be a part of.
It would definitely be a fun one. They have those team events at like World Meets,
Right.
And they're always a good time.
Awesome. So we have David and Max here from TCU again. Back 2.5 pike. Just a little bit by on both of them there. So what can cause that? You know, what are they trying to do? How do they get that entry that everybody wants to see
Execution
where they
scores
just disappear? How do they get
3.5,
that?
3.5,
A lot of it comes
4.5,
from your
4,
spotting and
4.5,
using your visual cues in
5.
the air. So as you're
Synchronization
rotating,
scores
looking for
5.5,
the water so you can
5.5,
orient yourself
5,
and, you know,
6,
hopefully put your feet in the right
6.
spot to land on your head. And
Nick and Max,
takeoff can affect that,
53,
and just being really aware
37
of
D.
where you are.
All right, so now our top 4 teams here, the younger team here in Nick and Max. Let's see here with a big reverse twister here. Wow,
Yeah.
did you see Nick's
That
takeoff?
was
He
an
was
amazing save.
and he crushed the dive. So that's a great example for our viewers at home. Sometimes, like Max said, it's not always going to go according to plan, but these athletes are
Execution
so
scores
talented
5.5,
that
6.5.
no, he
6,
destroyed the dive, meaning he just
6.5,
disappeared on the
5.5,
bottom. He
7.
still got deducted because that
Synchronization
takeoff
scores
took so much away from his
4.5,
amplitude
4.5,
and his height.
4.5.
So just honestly a
3.5,
great way to
4.
just get to 53 points for them. That was incredible.
Totally. Saving
Andrew and Quinn,
That's really good.
Yeah,
51,
good problem to have there,
54 B.
absolutely. All right, so it looks like Noah and Jack are not going here because we just went from Nick and Nick and Max here to Andrew and Quinn. So I hope everything's okay with those two young men, but we're going to jump right in here with a double twisting 2.5. Whew.
Nice dive.
Good dive. So maybe, I noticed that board was a little bit loud behind one of them. You know, what causes that? What are they searching for in
Execution
that board work
scores
that you said is so hard to master?
7.5, 8,
You know, the springboard
7,
is such a complex
6.5,
game. You really
7.
wanna land on it in
Synchronization
perfect
scores
rhythm.
7.5,
and when that doesn't happen, that's when you'll hear that
7.5,
stop.
6,
I think that was from
6.
Andrew.
Still, you see some scores up there.
Greg
Now,
and Tyler.
our viewers can probably see all
107
of those
B.
white shirts on the far side of the pool, sitting on the pool deck. They're actually running a FINA judging class here, which is awesome.
Yeah,
So they're
that's
going to
pretty
get more judges certified to judge high-level meets such as this, which is just incredible that USA Diving is pulling that off while they're running a giant meet like this.
Yeah, totally. And, the more people involved in diving, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, our leaders. Ooh, man.
You can just tell these guys are veterans.
Yeah,
They've been in this level of competition many, many times. The
One-
pressure doesn't
Execution
faze them.
scores.
100% agree with that. Almost 80 points. You're seeing some
8.5,
nines up there.
8,
Just for our viewers, so you kind of
synchronization
can understand where
scores.
Max and I are watching from. We're actually watching
9,
almost at an
9.5,
angle.
8.5,
You guys have that side profile
9.
view. We're kind of looking at an angle, but even from here, when we can see both divers very clearly, it looks like they're synced up perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
So, Max, I guess a good question I would have for you while we're on this break is, how is the IU team in?
Our country roads lead to new beginnings, with new opportunities around each mountain bend. Here, we don't just pride ourselves on being the best, we commit to it, designing world-class facilities with premier resources, backed by our communities who are determined to aid in our success. Together, we'll reach new heights. We welcome you to the place where you belong.
We are ready to begin round
Our country
4.
roads lead to new.
All right, and we're back here from the commercial break. So once again, we have
Ethan
and
and
Jackson
Jackson.
here. And they're going to go, so they're out of order a little bit different. So
205B.
205B in prelims, this was a 38.7 dive. So not the highest scoring dive. Let's see if they can up that a little bit here in finals and continue to improve.
Yeah, I think these boys can definitely do a much better 205
Yeah,
now.
I agree. And for our listeners, you need to understand all of the chaos that goes on in these warm-ups. And so when we say some of these teams are newer and put together, how many athletes do you think are on the boards at one time? That was a great job from both of them. I thought they both individually did a very good dive. The synchronization was a little bit off, but I think we should see a better score than earlier.
Yeah, I think so too. But to answer your
Execution
question,
scores.
the warm-ups at
5,
these meets can
6,
be crazy.
6,
like 20
5,
people on each
6,
board. You're doing
5.5.
one dive every 10
Synchronization
minutes.
scores.
Yeah.
5.5. 5.
definitely be hectic.
6.
All right, so
5.5.
next up, we're actually going to touch base on a dive, I believe. Let's make sure we're
Dylan
doing the
and
same order.
Sam. 205B.
So in prelims, they actually failed this dive. So meaning they got zeros. What happened in the prelim was Dylan was ready to go. They were synced up, and then Sam said he kind of lost his balance a little bit, so he didn't go, and that caused a failed dive. So let's see if they're definitely going to score more here. Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Much
better. That's awesome. Good job from those young men putting this team together. Like I said, I know Sam was a last-minute replacement for Cameron Cash, another pit
Execution
diver. So we're hoping he's
4.
he's doing okay.
4.5,
Nothing too
5.5,
serious, and just kind of needed
7,
a break. So
6.5,
I feel sure we'll see
6.5.
Dylan and Cam at the next
Synchronization
synchronized
scores.
event.
5.
Next up, we have Grant and
6,
Noah, and
6,
if the order
6,
holds true,
6.5.
they're going to be doing. Let's find it. 205B. So we're going
Grant
to see the same
and
dive
Noah.
here.
205
From this younger crew here from Ripfest. So where is, Max, where's Ripfest out of? And you kind of, our listeners keep hearing club diving from this club. What does that mean to our viewers that maybe aren't familiar with the diving scene?
Club diving is, well, first of all, Ripfest is a club
Yeah,
located
yes.
in Indiana. And club diving basically just means that it's a junior team where they take divers from age very young and raise them until they're 18 and send them off to college if they're good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, there we saw a pretty rough go of it on the far board. I don't know which young man is on the far board.
Execution scores.
But
4,
they were able to save that
3
and at least
half,
get a score.
4,
So that was, sometimes it
0.5,
doesn't go your way. Have you ever had that happen to you in a meet, Max?
1.5.
I have definitely had
Synchronization
dives not
scores.
go my way.
1.5.
You lose
2,
way more than you win.
3.5.
Absolutely.
2,
Well, and I think the
2.
incredible part that's hopefully our viewers kind of know
Evan
this is
and Braylon.
some of the best dives that
51,
we have seen this week,
52B.
they happen in the practice. They don't even happen in the meet.
Right.
I mean, we've both seen multiple dives that probably could get 10s at this meet go down in warm-up, so we're really hoping that we can see some of those this week in all of the events. Nice dive.
Very nice.
Full out there from Evan and Braylon. Also from Ripfest there in Indiana that you previously had mentioned. So in the prelim, that only scored 35
Execution
points. They're going to
scores.
be really happy with
5,
this. Yeah, 20
5.5,
20 point
5,
bump, 19, 20 points.
6,
That's incredible. Good job for those
6,
young men.
5. Synchronization scores. 6.5, 6.5, 7.5, 6.5, 6.5.
Looking to do
Yeah.
better.
That's awesome. And then maybe a little
Anastasios and George.
bit, what communication
107B.
goes into from this moment, from the moment they step on the board until they're in the water?
Yeah, so you'll hear the divers do a little countdown before their approach, and after that, you kind of have a routine that you just stick to.
Yeah. It looked like they were a little bit off there off the springboard, and somehow they kind of came together there.
Yeah, right. It looked like as they were walking, they got a little bit off. But
Execution scores. 5.5, 5.5.
So whenever you're
6,
practicing this, you know, like you said, you kind of have
4,
someone that counts for you.
Synchronization scores.
Simple,
5,
like, what are some simple
6,
things that maybe our viewers don't realize? Is it just walking to the end? Do you practice literally just walking to the end of the board?
Yeah, I mean,
Che and Adam.
on a forward takeoff,
107B.
you kind of like practice your hurdle individually, and you know, do the hurdle that you're going to use in this synchro event, and then it kind of just comes down to counting and going at the same time and sticking to the same speed that you practice every
Right.
day. If you're changing your speed of your approach, then synchro can be really hard.
Right. When your tempo or your speed as you walk can probably even affect how that board moves, correct?
Totally. You want a nice slow moving board.
Right. Nice dive from these young men. They definitely turned it up here in the finals for you viewers, so you're getting a little bit of a show here, which is
Execution
awesome to see.
scores.
Seeing
6.5,
a 55-point dive from these two.
6,
Exact same score they got in prelims, so
5,
seeing that consistency. So like Max
4.5.
said, you know, they obviously want to improve their
Synchronization
score, but being
scores.
consistent is
6.5,
typically what wins these
6,
big meets, right, Max?
6.5,
Totally.
6,
I mean, if
6.
you nailed it in the prelim, if you're able to just replicate that in the final,
Yeah.
David
that's
and
right
Max.
When I think it's,
51,
you know, it's important, like
52B.
sometimes the other person can just have a crazy good meet, but more importantly, I think when we have 12 dives, like Max said earlier in the broadcast, if you miss one, you kind of hurt yourself, but if you're consistent for 12 dives, you have a pretty good chance to be up there on the podium.
That's the name of the game.
Oh boy. Oh boy, we saw a rough hurdle there from David on the far board, but still doing a decent dive, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, very impressive. And you know, we've said this many times.
Execution
but the springboard
scores.
approach
5.5,
really
6,
so you
6.5,
can appreciate
4.5,
someone that's really
5.5,
consistent.
Yeah.
6.5.
It's honestly, it's like a thing you
Synchronization
take for granted
scores.
sometimes. Like if you're
4.5,
just, I feel sure you've had
5,
hopefully
2.5,
weeks or months where you're just like, man, my
4.5,
hurdle's been awesome, and then
3.5.
something goes wrong, and it's like, oh no.
Nick
And
and
the pressure
Max.
of the meet can do that.
407
Yeah, absolutely.
C.
Do you notice in the pressure of the meet, do people tend to go a little faster, a little slower? Like what do you notice when people get nervous at these meets?
I would say a lot of people tend to go faster.
Yeah.
But you'll see the best of the best. They really are so confident in their rhythm and their timing that they'll just stick to it like practice.
Yeah. So big dive here from these young men. 407. Both executed it well. Just that synchro off a little bit.
Yeah, execution, like Pete said, really good from both of them. It's a hard dive.
Yeah, that is it.
Execution
just for our viewers,
scores,
that is a
8,
dive you will see in
7,
the Olympics from a
6.5,
synchro team.
5.5,
Inward 3.5 tuck is
6,
pretty much a staple, I
5.
feel like, at this point in time. I think maybe
Synchronization
some teams are
scores.
starting to do it
6.5,
pike a little bit, and by some
6,
teams, there's really only one.
6, 6.5,
But
6.
you know, just incredible there. It's great seeing these young guys
Andrew
doing big
and
dives.
Quinn.
And just so our viewers know,
407C.
Max is also one of these young guys doing big dives. Max is a name you're going to see over the next 2 years in our sport.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Of course. Here are the teammates. Let's go, Andrew and Quinn.
So here's that inward 3.5 again, and you know, this is one of those newer dives for Quinn, and I think he's got a great chance to do it well here.
Yeah, I've seen some of your guys' Instagram posts when they crush these dives. It's pretty incredible, some of the stuff you see from your guys' practice.
Yeah.
Great dive. Let's go.
There you go, boys.
Let's go. That was something they needed. This is going to be some big scores for these two.
And one interesting thing about this team is for Andrew,
Execution
that's one of his
scores,
easier
8,
dives.
8,
That's a dive that he could do in his sleep.
7,
but for Quinn,
7,
that's a new dive.
6 and a
That's
half.
hard, so he
Synchronization
really has to step it up,
scores,
and Andrew
7,
holds him accountable
7 and a
to dive
half,
his best
7 and a
on
half.
That's a great segue.
7
Do
and
you
a half.
think that diving, I mean, like you had previously mentioned, Andrew is a silver
Greg
medalist in
and
this
Tyler,
event at the Olympics with Michael
51,
Hickson as his partner.
54B.
When you transition away from, essentially just for our viewers, like Michael was the elder statesman and the more experienced member of that pair. Now he's the more experienced one. Have you seen that at practice with him kind of saying, Quinn, we got this? Like, does that help Quinn kind of move it along and kind of maybe improve on a faster curve?
Totally, and not even for just Quinn. He does it for the whole team. Andrew is
Awesome.
really a great mentor and leader for, everyone in the United States.
Yeah,
He's
absolutely.
such a good, nice guy.
All right, now our leaders doing a front 2.5 with 2 twists. Man, what you got? That's awesome. What you guys are seeing at home is just consistently great dives from this pair of Greg Duncan and
Execution
Tyler
scores,
Downs. And again, Tyler Downs also an Olympian.
8, 7
Greg,
and a half,
I believe Greg
8 and a
Duncan is a
half,
multiple
6 and a
time
half.
Olympic trial qualifier.
Synchronization
Oh, yeah.
scores,
At least twice
7
that
and a
I can
half,
remember.
8,
ACC
8 and a half,
champion,
8,
Big Ten A finalist.
8 and a half.
Fun fact about Tyler and Greg, that Tyler was one of my first synchro partners ever. I don't know if you knew
What?
that.
I did not know that.
Yep.
That's awesome. How old were you guys when you first did that?
I think we must have been maybe 11 or 10 even.
That's awesome.
Like, we were pretty young, and I just noticed that he did the same dives I did. And,
That's awesome.
And my mom said, hey, that guy Tyler kind of dives like you. You guys should try synchro.
So your mom kind of paired you guys first. It didn't even have to do with your coach.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I
So-
just messaged him on Instagram.
So while we have this quick break, how has the Indiana team liked this new facility here at Morgantown, West Virginia?
Yeah, I think it's a great facility. I mean, I think it was built, maybe
We
I
are
think it
ready
opened
to
during
begin
COVID, maybe
round
right before
5.
COVID.
Yeah, so 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's brand new and it's beautiful. The platforms are super wide.
Yeah.
Springboards, they look pretty new. So
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what we like
Ethan
to hear.
and
We like hearing
Jackson.
whenever it's at a new facility or just a
405
facility
B.
that all the divers like it, because that's the most important thing.
yeah, you gotta
Alright.
feel comfortable.
Absolutely. All right, round 5 of 6. So would maybe this be a round that we might see some dives maybe they're not as confident in?
Yeah, I think rounds 4 and 5 are where you kind of put your less confident dives. Sandwich them in between two dives that you really love.
Yep, awesome. So we're going to see an inward 2.5 pike here from these two. Just a little off from Jackson. Ethan actually executed it pretty well, I thought, there. Just a little bit off, a little bit rolled by. And that inward,
Execution
spinning back
scores,
towards the board. We
6
haven't
and a
seen a
half,
ton of
5 and a
reverse
half,
optionals.
6
We've
and a
seen the
half,
reverse
3 and a
voluntary
half,
dive, the easier
4,
dive.
3.
But on these inwards,
Synchronization
is there ever
scores,
worry for these
3 and a
athletes
half,
that, oh man,
3 and a
that
half,
diving board's
4 and a
really
half,
close to my feet or my
4,
face? Is that
3
something you
and a
guys are
half.
concerned about?
Totally. And the
Dylan
main
and
priority is
Sam,
to be safe.
405
So when you're
B.
trying to be safe and do 3.5 flips towards the board, it's really a fine line and not a lot of margin for error.
Right, absolutely. And here we go with Dylan and Sam doing the exact same dive. It goes to show you how important your guys' coaches are
Yeah.
to make sure you're staying safe, because they're really that side eye for you guys to make sure that everything's getting executed properly.
Totally. And a good coach will never have you do a dive that's unsafe.
Absolutely. Nice dive. Let's go. I will say I don't think as commentators you're supposed to have favorites, but knowing this team was thrown
Execution
together
scores,
this morning
5 and a half,
just makes you
5
want
and a
to
half,
cheer for them, which is
5,
awesome.
7.
So again,
7,
57 points on
6 and
that
a
in the
half.
prelim, just a touch under
Synchronization
that, but they're going to be
scores,
pretty happy with
6
that
and a
dive.
half, 6
And
and
we
a
have
half,
Grant
6,
and Noah next.
7, 6.
They're going to be doing it looks like reverse twister, which I think was not a
Grant
super high
and
scoring
Noah,
dive. 47 points for them in the
53-35
prelim,
D.
so I think they can maybe up that here.
Yeah, reverse twisters in general are just beautiful dives if you can get them right.
Yeah, when they launch off the board and they're just in that perfect straight line body position, it's awesome. Pretty good, a little bit off there on the far board, but it looked like whoever was on the close board executed it pretty darn well in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they're going to be right around that 47 mark.
Yeah,
again.
I think so as well.
Execution
that's
scores,
a great segue.
6.5,
You and I
6,
kind of know when I say
6.5,
that straight body line off the
6,
board.
7,
What are the judges looking
5.5.
for? What do they want to see that's going to get them into those 8s, 9s, 10s?
6,
Yeah, I mean,
5.5,
the biggest and
5.5,
most obvious thing I would say is your
5.5,
entry.
6.
If you go into the water with no splash, you're
Evan
likely
and
gonna see some
Braylon,
8s and 9s and
305C.
10s. And other than that, it's kind of overall impression. You just want to see if a dive looks nice, if you have pointed toes, straight legs.
So here's one of those reverse optionals that we won't see a ton of in this event. And executed pretty well. Just a little off on the entry that you said might be the most important part of the dive.
Yeah. Yep. It was just a little bit short of vertical, and when that happens, you're probably going to throw up
Execution
some
scores,
absolutely.
6.5.
Now, as a
6.5,
diver, as an athlete,
6.5.
would you prefer that be short or long,
3.5,
over-rotated or
3.5.
under-rotated?
Synchronization scores,
I would
4.5,
say going short
6,
is usually a
5,
safer bet because
4.5,
a lot of the times
5.
when you're going over, you're kind of toast. There's
Anastasios
not much you can do.
and
But
George,
if you play the dive a little bit
51,
short, you can almost
52
adjust
B.
the dive to vertical and still sneakily get away with some good scores.
Right, absolutely. It's fun. It's neat because I asked Jacob Seiler, the guest, yesterday the same thing, and he's like, I'd rather see a dive go long because it's saying, okay, I can do the dive and I missed it versus if you don't do it. But I think that might, Jacob was an elite diver as well. And it's just you two have that ability to play a dive short and somehow disappear. A lot of divers don't have that ability.
Execution scores.
Great
5,
dive there. The Twins have
6,
just kind of been steady
6.5,
tonight. This is awesome.
5.5,
54 points.
6,
Nothing to be
6.
upset about there.
Synchronization
They did that for 47
scores.
in prelims, so
6.5,
they stepped it up a little bit.
6,
That's awesome.
6.5.
Che and Adam up next. They're going to be doing back 2.5 pike
6.
if everything holds true, and that was a 51.3 dive
Che
for them.
and Adam, 205B.
Yep.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, these back and reverse optionals can be the harder ones for them.
Is it just because they might not see those spots? You don't get to see your target as you're coming out of the dive?
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like a blind entry.
Yeah,
Although,
yeah.
if you have really, really good technique, you can spot the dive and know exactly where you are, but I'm not quite there yet.
I think Max is selling himself short for you viewers. Nice dive.
Yeah.
That was a nice executed dive. I think both were a touch short from at least our angle, but still, Synchro was very, very on point there.
Execution scores, 5, 6.
Good job for those young
5.5.
men. Just a hair under what they did
4.5.
earlier. Next up, we're going to have David and Max
6.
again. And they have front
Synchronization
takeoff here.
scores.
And it looks like
5.5.
David's been struggling a little bit with that front takeoff.
6.
Do you think that's just
5.5. 5.
kind of you're just kind of missing that ride a little bit? How can
David
he fix
and
that?
Max.
What's the adjustment he can make in between dives to fix
107B.
that?
I think that one of the things you can do in between dives is almost try to let go. Like, that's something that helps me when I'm really going for a perfect hurdle in a meet. I probably won't get a perfect hurdle, but if
Right.
I'm just like, I'm just going to, just relax.
Yeah.
And
That was a little bit better there from David.
much better.
A little bit by on Max, but still excellent dive for these men. Let's see if the scores kind of reflect
Execution
that again.
scores,
That was
4,
a
4.5,
61 point dive, and they're
7,
that.
7.5,
And it looks like that might
7.
be because one of those athletes just
Synchronization
missed the dive a little
scores,
bit, which happens.
6, 6.5.
Because like
6,
you said earlier, I think
6,
some of this is important
6.
just to remember that this is also just fine-tuning and trying to figure out where do we need to improve
Nick and
before
Max,
the next synchronized event.
107B.
All right, 107B here, and then we're going to see our biggest dive of the night after this from your teammates. But let's watch this 107B here that they crushed in the prelim. And they did the same thing again.
Crushed it again. Love to see it.
That's awesome. That's what we want to see here. Great job from Nick and Max. I think we're going to see this team be pretty competitive in a year and a half, like you had mentioned.
Execution scores, 7,
63.
6.5,
Very good.
6.5.
Yeah,
8,
a little bit better than earlier. You're
7,
seeing some 8s up there, some 7.5s. That's
Synchronization
exactly what you want to
scores,
see.
7.
All right, so for our
6.5,
viewers, this next dive we're about to see is the hardest
7,
dive
6.5.
that's being done in this competition. And it's being done synchronized,
Andrew
as
and
we
Quinn,
mentioned earlier.
51,
These two just learned this dive fairly
56B.
recently together, so you're literally seeing maybe under 10 reps of this dive together from these two. So let's see if they can put it down. They have been able to in practice. Pretty darn good.
Wait, what happened? I wasn't watching.
That was great. It looked like Andrew lost his legs a little bit, and that is explain maybe to our viewers why you might lose your legs in that dive. Are the legs coming apart when you say lose your dive?
6.5.
76
6.5.
points. Great job from those two.
5.5. 6.
And you can see
Six
that
and a half.
76 points
Synchronization
with
scores.
some sixes
6
on
and a
the
half.
board.
Yeah.
So if they
6.
score 8s on
7.
that dive, that's
7.
pushing 90 points.
6 and a half.
Absolutely.
And to answer your question, on a dive with that many twists
Greg
and
and
flips,
Tyler,
so much
405
centrifugal force
B.
just almost wants to pull your legs apart.
Yeah.
So you have to have really strong core and adductors, I believe, are
Yeah.
the muscles that will hold your legs together.
Ad goes in, ad goes in, abductors go out.
Oh, okay.
Abs together. I only know that because I just took a class and
Okay.
that's it. I'm not that smart. It's okay. All right. So here are our leaders doing a 405. So an inward action. It's a little bit lower degree of difficulty. Maybe why is this team going with a lower degree of difficulty versus Andrew and Quinn going with that higher degree of difficulty?
Well, that just seems to be their strategy, is going for consistent dives that they know they can nail.
And they are doing that. So it just, there's a lot to be said. We said earlier, consistency. And it could
Execution
just be maybe
scores.
different goals.
8.5.
That's awesome. 72 points from this team. A little better than earlier. They're just fine tuning and dialing in.
Synchronization
I think, like
scores.
Max said, going into the
7.5.
finals here,
7.5.
some of these teams might come into this with a little different goals.
8.5.
Some might be looking forward a year and a half, and some might be saying, hey, we're a new team. We want to see if this works, right?
Right. Totally. And I think that goes into the strategy.
That's awesome. Maybe talk to us a little bit. We talked a little before. I just think it's a neat story from you is, what are Quinn and Andrew like in between the prelims and the finals, where maybe prelims didn't necessarily go how they wanted and or maybe to the level they wanted, whether they're winning or losing, but what were they like in between rounds?
So as a teammate, and it's the day of their competition, so today I didn't see either of those guys in between the prelim and the final. If Quinn texted me and said, hey, let's hang out, then we would have hung out.
Right.
But I just, I think they both kind of wanted time alone to just rest. And
We are ready to
get their
begin the
mind ready for the
6th
final.
and final
That's awesome.
round.
That's awesome to
Let's
hear.
hear it for them.
All right. So our last round. So this is typically a dive, like you said. This is a pretty confident dive they want to end on and really crush, right?
Yeah. For these boys, I think it actually went a little bit
Ethan
south in
and
the prelim,
Jackson.
so
Yes. Yeah.
Nowhere to go but up.
107B.
107B. So yeah, like Max said in the prelims, this was a failed dive. This was zeros. So let's see if they can put this down and really end on a positive note going into their Christmas break and their winter break here. Much better. They're going to get a score on that. That's awesome. Good job for those young men. Nice to see. It really does seem like each team is kind of stepping it up as we go, which is awesome.
Execution scores 4,
And
4,
Jackson Salisbury
4.5,
is just the
3 and a
great guy.
half,
I don't
3
know
and a
Ethan very
half,
well,
3.
but Jackson's the man.
Synchronization
That's
scores
awesome.
4 and a
All right,
half,
and Dylan and
3,
Sam, this is our last
4,
minute team that got thrown
4,
together. Let's see if they can put
5.
down one more strong dive. Is it easier to
Dylan and
partner up
Sam,
and do the front takeoff or the back
51,
takeoff? What's a little easier to
54B.
coordinate in your opinion?
I've always thought that the back takeoffs in synchro were easier to coordinate just because we keep coming back to that hurdle. It's so tough.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see them put this down. This is a pretty hard dive, so let's see if they can do it. Yeah, there you go. Good job, gentlemen. That was a 57 point. I think they're going to be pretty happy with this. What do you think, Max?
Yeah, I think so. Sam's
Execution scores
very good.
Yeah.
4, 4 and a
Sam,
half,
just
4,
a touch under, but
6
still
and a
right
half,
there.
6,
That's okay.
6.
That's awesome. to see.
Synchronization
Both
scores
really strong dives.
6 and a
Yeah,
half,
absolutely.
5 and a half, 5 and a half, 5.
Now, you
5
kind
and
of
a
talked
half.
about it where, you throw two great divers together, you might get a great result. Do you ever see you
Grant
throw two great
and
divers together
Noah.
and you do not get a great result?
51, 52B.
Sometimes. I mean, I would say the only thing that would prevent that from creating a great team is just, how well the divers get along.
Yeah. Nice dive from this young crew. That was awesome. That was a 43-point dive for them. They're going to be way happier with that, I think, in the final here.
Yeah, and I think it's so great.
Execution scores
divers
5 and a half, 5, 5 and a half.
Just to get that experience. I mean, you,
5
like
and a
you said,
half,
you were an
5,
athlete that kind of got that
5 and a
experience,
half.
and you can see it definitely
Synchronization
helped
scores
everything.
5 and a half.
I think you
5 and a
said it
half,
earlier,
6,
something that might prevent teams
6,
from not doing well
6.
is not getting along. I don't know if you listen. Do you listen to Laura Wilkinson's podcast?
Evan and
You
Braylon.
guys did?
No. You need to listen to
205B.
Laura Wilkinson's podcast. I believe it's called Pursuit of Gold. And they actually talk with Mike Hickson. And when he led into the Rio Olympics with Sam Dorman, which he got another silver medal, and they went to a camp, like a selection camp, and he goes, when he got to the camp, he said, I'll be partners with anybody but Sam. And then after, he goes, I just want to be partners with Sam.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, right? Like, funny story. So I would highly recommend that one. Just a little bit by there from our far diver on the far springboard, the closest to the towers.
I think I may have seen the far diver maybe touched his toes on the board on the come out there.
Let's see if
Execution
the judges
scores
catch that.
6.5,
They might have.
7.5, 7.
So why would a
3,
diver, on a
4.5,
back rotating
3.
dive where they're actually going away from the
Synchronization
diving board,
scores
how can they hit their feet on the board?
6,
It's
6,
all about the direction
5,
of your jump. If
4.5.
Just on your takeoff, you want to create rotations. So you bend
Anastasios
backwards.
and
If
George.
you bend backwards and throw your hips
51,
forward,
54,
you'll go
B.
forward.
Yep.
So you want to make sure your hips go up and out a little bit.
So kind of wherever your hips go, your body's going to follow, huh?
Yeah, I
That
would
center
say so.
mass, that center of gravity, that makes a little bit of sense, huh?
Physics.
Yeah, it's weird. That's why it's challenging at times. All right, let's see it. Great dive there. That was a good dive. 53 points in the prelims. I think they're going to be a little happier with this one. What do you think?
Totally. I think that's going to be right around 60 points.
Yeah, I think so as well. Let's see. Let's see if we're on or off.
Execution scores 4.5.
Nice, right around 60.
4.5,
Good job.
4.5.
It's almost like you've done this for a little bit.
6, 6.
When did you start
Synchronization
diving? 'Cause
scores
you said you got paired with
5.5,
Tyler when you were 10 or 11. So let's hear when you started
5.5.
diving.
So
Six,
I started diving
six.
when I was 7 in 2011. And I think me and Tyler
Che
paired
and
up
Adam,
for the first time
405
in
B.
2015.
Oh,
So
that's like wild to think you started diving in 2011 and I was a sophomore in college. So yeah, you're making me feel a little bit old in the last 2 days. So I really appreciate it. All right, Che and Adam here going with an inward 2.5 pike.
And, to touch on this again, I think you'll see them end on this because it's probably a confident dive for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice dive. You called it, Max. You were spot on there, man.
Really nice.
Execution scores 6.5, 6, 6.5, 6.5, 7, 6. Synchronization scores 6.5, 6.5, 6.5, 7, 7.
All right, I'm just going to bring up dive feeds
David
here so that
and
we were able to
Max.
kind of just announce the final order there.
51, 54,
and the finish.
B.
All right, here we go with David and Max. Let's see them finish on a strong dive here. I believe they did double out. So we've seen a couple of these. When we say double out, it's because they'll go into the somersault and twist out of the somersault. Oh. Decent dives individually, way off on that synchronization.
Yeah, it looks like luckily they came together towards the end, but at the start, definitely a little bit off.
Yep, so let's kind of see if it reflects that way in the judges' scores.
Execution scores 4.5,
Still
4.5,
still not something to be
5,
sad about with 53 points on a dive.
7,
You had kind of
7.
mentioned this on Vols.
Synchronization
we talked about it a little bit
scores.
yesterday, kind of
5,
really aiming for
5,
50 points. If you can hit
4.5,
50 points on a voluntary,
5,
you are
4.5.
very happy as a team.
Oh, yeah.
What's that goal on an optional?
Nick
I would
and
say
Max.
it depends what your goal
51,
is. If your goal is
54
an Olympic
B.
medal, you really want to be pushing 80 points.
Nice.
But that's no small feat.
Yeah.
I would say anywhere above 60 points
Yeah,
will.
you're happy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, same exact dive here. Let's see if they can execute a hair better. Shit. Woo! Great dives individually. Just looked like Nick had some issues with his hurdle on that far board. Just kind of dropping those arms a little bit early. How does that affect your dive? You drop those arms early.
Well,
Execution
if you drop your
scores
arms early,
7,
it's probably because
6,
you're falling
6
over
and a
the
half,
end of the board a little
5
bit
and
too
a half,
much, and
6.
that can really cut
6.
off all your height.
Right.
Synchronization scores.
You can see there, Max.
5 and a
Excellent
half,
scores.
5,
Even Nick
6,
with a maybe not
5
the
and a
best
half,
takeoff. Kind of
6.
still put it together there. Still getting 60 points. You said still can't be upset with that.
Andrew and Quinn.
All right.
Very good dive.
107
And then our
B.
I believe our second place team. Yep, second place. Our second place team here doing a 107B. Just a front 3.5 pike. A little simpler. One of their simpler dives.
Yeah, it is. And these boys trained the 109C, but I think they decided for this meet they were just going to play it safe in the final round and go with something they know.
Absolutely. And we should see them crush this dive.
Yep, they do.
So, yeah, that you see that every day at practice from all of them, and Max also contributes to them destroying dives.
Execution
Just
scores,
a great dive there.
7.5,
70 points.
8,
Got to be very happy with
8.5,
that.
7,
Great note to end on, kind of
7,
leading in. Able to
7.
compete that triple out, that
Synchronization
into 3.5,
scores,
double out.
8,
And then, like you said, maybe went a little bit easier on that last dive for whatever reason.
7.
That's okay. But ending on a 70-point dive and getting that meet experience is so vital
Greg
as
and
they
Tyler,
go into this Olympic cycle and
53-37
really starting to prepare
D.
for these synchro events, right?
Yeah, I mean, you saw earlier the triple out and the inward both went very well for them today. So I think they'll be really happy with how this final went.
Yeah, a lot of good things to be happy about there. And then our leaders with a reverse 3.5 twister, still a strong dive in their own right here.
Yeah, they only need 6 points here to claim the gold medal. So unless something goes disastrously wrong, they got it.
Well, it went disastrously right.
Yes.
That was incredible.
Yeah, really
Great
good
job.
dive.
Like you said, though, 12 good dives, and that's exactly what
Execution
Tyler and
scores,
Greg were able to do
7,
throughout the entire
7.5,
meet. 12 good
7.5,
dives, and they're our champions, which I think,
7.5,
I think they would, them and Andrew, I would say, were the favorites coming in. Those two pairs, we kind of thought.
7,
I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think those were the
7.5.
favorites, and for them to go 1-2. I think that gives them a lot of hope going into that Olympic trials. So what do we want to see from the teams from here before we go through that? Just to read off our results.
To the medal
in first place was Greg
area.
and Tyler. In second was Andrew and Quinn. In our third place team was Nick and Max, that younger team. Fourth, I just clicked on here. David and Max from TCU. Che and Adam from Louisville. In sixth, the twins from Princeton, Anastasios and George. In seventh, Evan and Barelin. In eighth, Dylan and Sam. In ninth, Grant and Noah. In 10th, Ethan and Jackson. And you'll still see 11th there with Noah and Jack, even though they did not finish the final round there. So we're able to see here, outside of Nick and Max, we were able to see the experience maybe play a factor here, and some of the more experienced teams doing a little better than the junior teams, right?
Totally. I mean, experience plays a huge role to your confidence and, just your execution at this level of meet.
All right, we're still going. Sorry, keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, like you said, your experience really can play a huge role. And, as you get older, you get stronger and you can do some of those bigger dives as well, which really helps.
Yeah, so I was asking you before we read the results, what's the goal now for these teams, the synchro pairs in particular? We'll talk more about individual as the week progresses, but the synchro pairs, how do they evaluate this and where do they go from here?
I think that, they kind of evaluate what dives they're doing and they look at their score and maybe compare their score to, okay, what do we need to, get the trial spot and, go to qualify for the Olympics. Like, one thing that we do at IU is we'll look at, okay, in the past, what have you needed to score at an Olympic trials to qualify for the Olympics? And you'll set that your benchmark. And from there, you'll say, okay, we need to use the 109.
Yeah.
We need to use the inward 3.5 and the triple out. And, it goes to show that's why they did that list today from Andrew and Quinn.
So really for you guys, at least at IU, I mean, we can't talk about other teams. For you guys at IU, really the goal sounds to me like the goal is the Olympics and the college training just built into that. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, that's definitely accurate.
For some of you at least, not all of you obviously.
Yeah, I think that the NCAA circuit is very important as well. We want to win Big Ten team titles with our swimmers as well, and but it really at the end of the day is for Team USA, and we want to win some medals at the Olympics.
Awesome. Max has a couple of his teammates here kind of cheering him on in the background. But yeah, I think just super excited. You guys are going to see here Carson Tyler's coming to say hi to Max.
Hello.
IU diver. We'll see him hopefully in finals later.
I'm so glad I was able to watch that.
How'd
you feel?
I felt good.
Jessica
Hello, diving
Parada,
world.
Olympian. Here, yeah.
What's
like
up, guys?
Olympic silver medalist. What'd you guys think of the event?
Great competition. Purdue boys looked great. They were very sharp on it. And yeah, Andrew and Quinny hitting the big dive.
Yeah, that was incredible. That was awesome. That's what we were just going over. I was like,
Better list for them second time around, so that was good.
I feel like with them doing those big dives, that's all it is right now. It's just reps, right?
Yeah. Down to reps, down to competing at all.
So I have to ask, we're going to get to see you compete on 1 meter.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone's ever seen you do 1
I
meter
don't think
unless
I've
they
ever
watched
done
you in
1
college.
meter at nationals, NCAA
What?
nationals.
Jessica Parado is actually the 1 meter record holder at IU.
What? I didn't know that. That's
So-
awesome.
So she can dive some 1 meter.
I mean, yeah. It's going to be interesting. I wasn't really prepared to do this, but it's just another fun chance to compete, so.
That's awesome. So are we going to get to see you
Will
compete
the top
more and more
3
as we get
teams
closer?
please report to the medal staging area.
All right. That's awesome. That's awesome. So maybe trying some springboard, maybe like David did? Ah, you're going to just keep us in suspense.
It's a secret.
I feel like it's a secret, but I'm the only one that doesn't know it, and the rest of you here do know the secret, so I feel a little left out. But that's okay. Yeah, we are excited. Hopefully we are going to see both of these competitors in finals on women's 1 meter and Carson on pretty much every other event, 3 meter and tower, I believe. So we're super hopeful that we're going to see them here in finals, and we're going to keep bringing you guys this coverage. Our goal is to continue to bring on different guests. I'm going to keep being here. Hopefully you guys enjoy hearing me a little bit, but we're going to keep trying to bring guests. If not, we'll have Max and Jacob back for sure. So just really, really excited here as we keep going through this event. You know, what are your takeaways from this event, just for Winter Nationals as a whole here at WVU and for your team?
Yeah, I mean, the takeaways are, you know, like we talked about, getting that experience, and this is honestly good practice for later in the collegiate season as well, leading up to NCAAs and, you know, the conference meets. Like, you're going to see a lot of the same divers at those meets. But at the end of the day, it's all about having fun. So I hope everyone has a good time here.
Yeah, so that's, you know, I think that's, I was actually going to ask you it earlier. So for you to be diving since you're 7 years old, you love diving.
Yeah,
And
totally.
what do you love about diving?
Honestly, I love competing. I'm a very competitive person, so if I see someone hit a dive, you know, I want to go in there and hit the dive as well. And at the end of the day, the reason I dive, it just feels like you're flying, man. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. It's just so fun being in the air and, like, just floating almost. There's nothing like it.
That's awesome. So do you have any recommendations for our viewers if maybe they have younger kids? How do they find a club near them?
I think if you go to USA Diving's website, they can help you find a club near you. And most clubs have lessons programs, so no experience needed. You can just show up and learn how to dive, and it's a good time.
Awesome. So here's a goofy one. Were you always good at diving? Were you good when you started?
I was a gymnast before I started diving, so I definitely had a background in flipping. And so it did come pretty naturally to me, but there were totally some dives that were really, really struggles to learn. And I'm, you know, still dealing with that to this day. The handstand dives on platform have really been a struggle for me.
Why are those a struggle for you?
I've had some wrist problems in the past, so that kind of had to put a halt to that training. But you know, it's just really scary, and the takeoff is really tricky and difficult. So mastering all of those elements.
So I guess before they kick us off the air here, you know, do you have anything you want to say to anybody listening or anybody that might listen to this in the future?
I would say keep tuning in to the broadcast, and I just really want to say thanks for having me, Heath. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this was awesome. So we're gonna get Max on our podcast as well. So we're really excited. We love interviewing these IU divers. They are just incredible to watch dive, and more importantly, they're just fun to talk to. You can tell they love diving, and as we've went through this process, and hopefully it'll get better every single time. I'm gonna ask them questions and get out of the way. They're telling us to keep going. So what else? How about this? What are you looking forward to the rest of this week?
I'm looking forward to seeing my teammates just absolutely tear it up. You know, whether it be my old club teammates who I see warming up right now, or my current Indiana teammates. You know, I'm really looking forward to seeing some great diving and get me fired up for the rest of the season.
Awesome. Now, just for our viewers, what clubs did you dive at? What coaches did you dive with before you got to IU?
Yeah, I started out at Montgomery Dive Club, where Wes Matthijs was my coach, and he's here, so it's always great to see him. And then my senior year of high school, I dove with Dominion Dive Club with Steph Sutton.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
now Wes is coaching at NC State.
Yep.
So he's also coached club and college, but now he's with the Wolfpack down there at NC State, and he's doing a great job. He actually has a diver on the men's 1 meter that'll be competing on Sunday, I believe. And then Steph Sutton, Clarion alumni. So we know her really, really well. She's awesome. Just two incredible coaches. You're very fortunate to have had great coaches your entire career, which helps.
I'm totally fortunate. I mean, that's just one of those things where it's almost luck that I was, just born where I was. So I was surrounded by all these great diving coaches. It's awesome.
So give us a good story about Andrew and Quinn, since they just got done competing, that you can share with us.
A good story about Andrew and Quinn. I haven't.
We're done.
Oh.
It is now time to present the awards for the men's 3 meters synchro. Can we quiet the diving boards, please? Quiet the diving boards. Presenting the award tonight is Tom Bloom, President of Mongalia County Commission. In third place, Nick Harris and Max Fowler. In second place, Andrew Capobianco and Quinn Henninger. And your 2022 USA Diving Winter National Champions are Greg Duncan and Tyler Downs. Let's give them one more round of applause. I'm here with the champions, Greg Duncan and Tyler Downs. Gentlemen, what were the keys to the victory tonight?
Consistency more than anything, just trying to do our dives the best we could for 12 rounds today. I would say that was the key for me at least.
Yeah, I'll say also being composed throughout the competition because there's a lot of pressure, especially being at the end of the rounds, so we got to stay composed so we can do our dives.
There was some big degree of difficulty in this contest. What was it like to see those dives being done, keep your composure, and put some good ones together yourself?
Yeah, it's impressive. I'm glad the field, they all are progressing and developing really well, and we're trying to keep up with them all, so it's good.
Yeah, especially going to international meets, you see all these guys doing biggest dives, so it's good to be diving against them and seeing how we do. So yeah, it's good.
And finally, what's in store for Team Duncan and Downs in the future?
More training and more competing.
What he said.
All right, thanks guys, and congratulations.
Our country roads lead to new beginnings. with new opportunities around each mountain bend. Here, we don't just pride ourselves on being the best, we commit to it, designing world-class facilities with premier resources, backed by our communities who are determined to aid in our success. Together, we'll reach new heights. We welcome you to the place where you belong.
Dive Live, now available at the Apple and the Google Store. Allows divers to enter their dive sheets, everything they need on the phone, including add video to their dive sheets. Great for recruiting. For coaches, there is no easier way to run a diving contest.